Captain Li Wu stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, staring at the massive metal object floating in the darkness of space. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was 3 times larger than their own vessel and covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with a faint blue light. "Captain, we are getting some unusual readings from that ship," said Lieutenant Kim Tae from his station. His voice was calm, but Li Wu could hear the excitement underneath. This was their first real discovery since leaving Earth 6 months ago. Dr. Park Hannah looked up from her computer screen. "The metal composition is completely unknown to us. Whatever built this ship had technology far beyond what we have on Earth." Li Wu had been chosen to lead humanity's first journey to another star system. The year was 2157, and humans had finally created ships that could travel faster than light. The New Horizon was the best ship Earth had ever built, but looking at the alien vessel, it seemed like a small toy in comparison. "Any signs of life over there?" Li Wu asked. "No, sir," replied Kim Tae. "The ship appears to be completely dead. No power, no movement, no communications." Ki Suki spoke up from the back of the bridge. "Captain, I think we should board that ship. If we can learn about their technology, it could change everything for humanity." Li Wu nodded slowly. He knew this was why they had come so far from Earth, to learn, to discover, to find out if humans were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, but it brought more questions than answers. "Prepare the boarding team," Li Wu ordered. "Dr. Park, you will lead the science team. Kim Tae, you will handle security. You and Suki, bring your tools. We need to learn everything we can about this ship." 2 hours later, the small human team stood inside the alien vessel. The corridors were much taller than human buildings, built for creatures that must have been at least 3 meters tall. Strange lights flickered along the walls, still working after who knows how many years in space. "The air is breathable," Dr. Park said, checking her instruments. "Whatever lived here needed oxygen just like we do." They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. The walls were covered in symbols and pictures that told a story, but it was a story humans could not yet understand. "Look at this," Yoon Suki called out from ahead. She was standing in front of a large room filled with strange machines. "I think this might be their computer center." Dr. Park ran her hands over the smooth surfaces of the machines. "These are incredibly advanced. The processing power must be thousands of times greater than our best computers on Earth." Kim Tae stood guard at the entrance, his weapon ready. "This place feels wrong," he said quietly. "Like something terrible happened here." As if responding to his words, one of the machines suddenly came to life. Lights flashed, and a low humming sound filled the room. The humans stepped back in surprise. "Did we activate something?" Li Wu asked. "I don't think so," Yoon Suki replied. "Seems to be responding to our presence." A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. Earth's location was marked with a small red dot at the edge of the map. "That's our solar system," Dr. Park whispered. They knew about us. The display changed, showing what looked like a database with millions of entries. Dr. Park worked quickly with her translation programs, trying to understand the alien language. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "I think I found something important." The screen showed information about Earth and humanity, but the translation made Li Wu's blood run cold. Species: human. Classification: Tier 7, primitive. Status: scheduled for integration. Timeline: 50 local years. "What does that mean?" Kim Tae asked. Dr. Park continued reading. "It says here that we are part of something called the Stellar Concordance, a galactic government that controls most of the galaxy. According to this, they plan to force us to join them in 50 years. And if we refuse, Li Wu asked, though he feared the answer. Dr. Park's face went pale. It says here that over 200 species have refused integration. They were all eliminated through something called the cleansing protocol. The room fell silent, except for the humming of the alien machines. Yunsuki was the first to speak. This ship, she said slowly. The species that built it, they refused to join, didn't they? Dr. Park nodded. The Vorthok. They were completely wiped out 300 years ago. Akeem checked his weapon again. Are we in immediate danger? Okay. No, Dr. Park said, still reading from the database. Okay. The Concordance doesn't consider us worth watching yet. They think we are too primitive to be a threat. Li Wu felt anger building inside him. Humanity had just learned they were not alone in the universe, and their first discovery was that powerful aliens planned to destroy them if they refused to surrender their freedom. What else can we learn from this database? He asked. Yunsuki was already connecting her equipment to the alien computers. Give me a few hours and I can download everything, okay? Their technology is incredibly advanced, but I think I can figure out how to copy their data. Do it, Li Wu ordered. We need to know everything about this Concordance and how to fight them. Fight them? Kim Tae asked. Captain, they control the entire galaxy. How can humans fight something like that? Li Wu looked at the map, showing thousands of star systems under Concordance control. Earth was just a tiny dot on the edge of their empire, but humans had never backed down from a fight when their freedom was threatened. We will find a way, he said firmly. We always do. Dr. Park discovered more information about the Concordance's military forces, their technology, and their methods of controlling other species. The more she read, the more determined she became. Captain, she said, there might be hope, Daintway. Mentions other species that are still fighting. They call themselves the Resistance. How do we contact them? Li Wu asked. Yunsuki looked up from her work. I found their communication frequencies. If we can build the right equipment, we might be able to send messages across the galaxy. For the first time since boarding the alien ship, Li Wu smiled. Then, that's what we'll do. Humanity has just learned that we are not alone in the universe. Now, we need to make sure we survive long enough to meet our neighbors as equals, not as slaves. The team spent the next 6 hours copying everything they could from the alien database. When they finally returned to the New Horizon, they carried with them the knowledge that would change humanity's future forever as their ship began its journey back to Earth. Li Wu stood on the bridge looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, powerful aliens were making plans to destroy his species. But they had made one mistake. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive and fight for freedom. The war for humanity's future had not yet begun, but the first battle had already been won. They now knew what they were fighting against, and that knowledge would be their greatest weapon. 5 years had passed since Captain Li Wu returned to Earth with the terrible news about the stellar concordance. The world had changed completely. Every nation on Earth now worked together to prepare for the coming threat. Humanity had built hundreds of new ships and secretly established colonies on 12 different star systems. Ambassador Choi Minji sat in her small ship, waiting in the darkness between the stars. She had been chosen as humanity's first galactic diplomat, and today she would make contact with the Resistance. Her hands shook slightly as she checked the communication equipment one more time. Unknown vessel. This is Ambassador Choi Minji. Of Earth, she spoke into the transmitter. We received your message. We wish to meet. The response came immediately. Follow these coordinates. Earth, human. Come alone, as agreed. Minji's ship followed the guidance signals to a hidden asteroid base. The asteroid looked empty from the outside, but inside it was a bustling center of activity. Ships from dozens of different species were docked in the massive underground bays. A tall, four-armed alien greeted her as she stepped off her ship. "I am Commander Velik of the Kelhari," he said in perfect English. "We have been waiting to meet your species for a long time." "How do you know our language?" Minji asked in surprise. "We have been watching Earth for 2 years," Velik replied. "We needed to know if humans could be trusted. Your species shows great promise." Velik led her through the base to a large meeting room. Inside, representatives from 6 different alien species sat around a circular table. Minji had never seen anything like them. Some looked like giant insects, others like living energy, and some were completely unlike anything on Earth. "Welcome, human," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Nexus 7 of the Nexari. We are the strategists of the Resistance." Okay? Being made of pure light flickered next to the table. "And I am Brightsong of the Lumina. We are pleased to meet the newest members of our alliance." Okay? Minji took her seat at the table. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We know we are new to galactic politics, but we want to fight for our freedom. That is why we are here," Velik said. "The Concordance has ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They have destroyed any species that refuse to surrender their independence. But together, we can fight back." Keys 7 projected a holographic map of the galaxy. "The Concordance controls 60% of all star systems. They have the largest military force in galactic history, but they have one weakness." "What weakness?" Minji asked. "They cannot understand creativity," Brightsong explained. "They follow the same tactics, the same strategies, the same thinking patterns they have used for centuries. They are predictable." Velik stood up and walked to the map. "This is why your species interests us so much. In just 5 years, humans have taken our basic technology and improved it in ways we never imagined. Your Admiral Kong Do-yan has created new ship designs that are faster and more powerful than anything we have built." Minji smiled. "Admiral Kong would be pleased to hear that. He has been working with our best scientists to combine human engineering with alien technology." "And your Dr. Lim Jawan, Nexus 7, added, her work on quantum physics has solved problems that have puzzled our scientists for decades." "What do you need from us?" Minji asked. "Everything," Velik said simply. "We need your ships, your soldiers, your ideas, and most importantly, your way of thinking." The Concordance has never faced an enemy like humanity. Over the next few hours, the alien representatives explained the current state of the galactic war. The Resistance controlled about 20% of the galaxy, mostly in the Outer Rim territories. The Concordance had superior numbers in technology, but they were spread thin across their vast empire, had been fighting a defensive war for 300 years, Brightsong said. "We hide, we run, we survive, but we do not win." "What would it take to win?" Minji asked. "We need to go on the attack," Velik replied. "But that requires coordination between species that have never worked together before. It requires new tactics and new technology." Nexus 7 projected detailed information about Concordance military forces. "They have a weakness in their command structure. All orders come from the Hegemon Council on their capital world. If we could disrupt their communications, their entire military would be paralyzed." "How do we do that?" Minji asked. "We don't know yet," Velik admitted. "But your species has a gift for finding solutions to impossible problems." Minji spent 3 more days at the asteroid base, learning about the different resistance species and their capabilities. The Kelhari were master warriors with incredible strength and honor. The Nexari were brilliant strategists who could calculate millions of possibilities in seconds. The Lumina could manipulate energy in ways that seemed like magic to humans. When she finally returned to Earth, Minji brought with her alliance agreements and detailed intelligence about the Concordance. She also brought something else. Hope. Admiral Kong Do-yan listened carefully to her report in the secret military base hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean. So they want us to lead a galactic war against an empire that has never been defeated. They want us to teach them how to think differently, Mingy replied. They believe human creativity and adaptability could be the key to victory. Dr. Lim Jawan looked up from the alien technology samples Mingy had brought back. These energy manipulation techniques from the Lumina could revolutionize our weapon systems. And the Kalahari metal alloys are stronger than anything we have on Earth. How about their numbers? Admiral Kong asked. How many ships do they have? Resistance fleet has about 2,000 ships, Mingy replied. The Concordance has over 50,000. The room fell silent. The odds seemed impossible. Mingy continued. Most Concordance ships are old and use outdated technology. They rely on their reputation and overwhelming numbers. They have never faced a real challenge to their power. Admiral Kong stood up and walked to the window overlooking the secret shipyards. Hundreds of new human ships were under construction, each one incorporating the best of human and alien technology. Then, it's time to give them one, he said. How long do we have before they notice our activities? According to the Resistance, the Concordance sends scout ships to check on primitive species every 10 years, Mingy replied. We have about 3 years before they realize we are no longer primitive. Dr. Lim Jiwan smiled. 3 years is enough. Time to build a proper fleet, And I have some ideas about combining human technology with these alien innovations. What kind of ideas? Admiral Kong asked. It's the kind that will surprise everyone, she replied, including us. 6 months later, the first joint resistance human operation took place in the Kepler system. Small force of 20 ships, half human and half alien, attacked the Concordance outpost. The attack was perfectly coordinated, with each species contributing their unique strengths. The Kalahari provided heavy assault ships that could take enormous damage. The Nexari calculated the perfect attack patterns. The Lumina disrupted the enemy's energy weapons, and the humans provided the unexpected tactics that caught the Concordance completely off guard. The outpost was destroyed without a single resistance. Casualty.news of the victory spread quickly through both the Resistance and the Concordance. For the first time in centuries, someone had dealt a real blow to the Galactic Empire in the secret chambers of the Hegemon Council. Ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years began to take notice of the small blue planet on the edge of their empire. They had thought humans were just another primitive species to be easily conquered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. General No Sun Wu stood in the command center of the human colony on Kepler 4 for to be, watching the enemy fleet approach on the main screen. 50 Concordance warships were heading straight for the 3 human settlements in this system. This was it, the moment humanity would either prove they belonged in the galaxy or be wiped out like so many species before them. General, we have 37 ships ready for battle, reported his aide. The Resistance fleet won't arrive for another 6 hours. Sun Wu nodded calmly. He had been expecting this attack for months. The Concordance had finally decided that humanity was becoming too dangerous to ignore. 3 human colonies were about to be destroyed as a warning to Earth and the Resistance. Send the evacuation signal to all 3 planets, he ordered. But prepare for battle. We're not running from this fight. Captain Song Yuren sat in her fighter cockpit aboard the carrier ship New Seoul. She led the Ghost Squadron, 24, of humanity's best pilots, flying ships that combined human engineering with alien technology. Her ship was faster and more maneuverable than anything the Concordance had ever seen. Ghost Squadron, this is Ghost Leader, she said into her radio. Remember your training. Stay fast, stay unpredictable, and stay alive. The Concordance fleet was commanded by Admiral Deknor, a veteran of 100 battles against primitive species. He had never lost a single engagement. As his ships entered the Kepler system, he felt confident that this would be another easy victory. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Destroy all 3 planets, leave nothing alive." But as his ships moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. The human fleet didn't retreat or try to defend the planets. Instead, they split into small groups and began attacking from all directions at once. "What are they doing?" Deknor demanded. "This is not standard military tactics." His tactical officer studied the sensor readings. "Sir, they appear to be using some kind of coordinated swarming attack. I've never seen anything like it." Song Yaren's fighter screamed past a massive Concordance battleship, firing quantum torpedoes at its weapon systems. "Ghost 3, hit the engines. Ghost 7, take out their communications array." The human fighters moved like a school of fish, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. They had trained for this moment for 3 years, developing tactics that no enemy could predict. General Sun Wu watched the battle from his command ship. The human fleet was outnumbered almost 2 to 1, but they were winning. The Concordance ships were too big and slow to hit the fast-moving human vessels, and their weapons were designed for fighting other large ships, not small fighters. "Sir, the enemy flagship is trying to retreat," reported his communications officer. "Don't let them," Sun Wu replied. "If even one ship escapes, they'll report our tactics to the Concordance. We need to end this here." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 43 Concordance ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 7 managed to escape. The human fleet had lost just 3 ships, but the real victory was about to begin. Dr. Han Vinciak had been working in secret laboratories on Earth for 2 years, combining human technology with alien innovations. His latest creation was a quantum communication system that could broadcast across the entire galaxy instantly. "General Sun Wu," he said over the secure channel, "are you ready to make history?" "Do it," Sun Wu replied. Across the galaxy, every species with quantum communication equipment received the same message. It was broadcast in over 200 languages. Reaching every corner of the Concordance Empire, the message began with Ambassador Choi Mingy's voice.com in clear. "People of the galaxy, we are the humans of Earth. Today, we speak not just for ourselves, but for all free beings everywhere. For too long, the stellar Concordance has ruled through fear and violence. They have destroyed hundreds of species who refuse to surrender their freedom. They have enslaved entire worlds and crushed the dreams of billions of beings." The message continued with evidence of the Concordance's crimes. Dr. Han Vinciak had decoded the databases from dozens of destroyed civilizations. The proof was overwhelming. The Concordance had committed genocide on a scale never before seen in galactic history. "But today, that ends," Minji's voice continued. "Today, we declare that no species should be forced to give up their freedom. No world should be enslaved. No culture should be destroyed. We call upon all free beings to rise up and fight for their right to exist." The message ended with the coordinates of resistance, bases, and instructions for how to join the fight. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, over 30 neutral species had declared their support for the resistance. Uprisings began on dozens of Concordance-controlled worlds. The galaxy had been waiting for someone to stand up to the Empire, and humanity had given them the courage to fight. On the Concordance capital world, the Hegemon Council met in emergency session. The ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years were facing their first real challenge. "How many ships do we have in the core systems?" asked the first Hegemon. 2,000, replied the military Hegemon. "But we have reports of rebellion in over 50 systems. Our forces are spread too thin." "What about these humans?" asked the science Hegemon. "How did they defeat Admiral Deknor?" "They used tactics we have never seen before," the military hegemon replied. Small, fast ships, attacking in coordinated groups. Our weapons couldn't target them effectively. The first hegemon stood up, his ancient form towering over the council chamber. Then we must adapt. If these humans want a war, we'll give them. 1. Mobilize the entire fleet. Prepare the ancient weapons. It is time to remind the galaxy why we have ruled for so long. But across the galaxy, the rebellion was spreading faster than the Concordance could respond. The resistance fleet had grown from 2,000 ships to over 10,000 in just 1 week. New species were joining the fight every day. Captain Song Yaren found herself leading not just the Ghost Squadron, but an entire wing of fighters from 12 different species. Species brought their own unique abilities to the fight. Kalhari provided heavy assault fighters. The Nexari contributed tactical analysis. The Lumina offered energy manipulation techniques. "This is incredible," she said to her wingman, a Kalhari pilot named Gorak. "6 months ago, I had never seen an alien. Now I'm fighting alongside beings I couldn't have imagined." "War makes it strange, friends," Gorak replied in his deep voice. "But humans have proven themselves worthy allies. You fight with honor." General Sunwoo was promoted to Supreme Commander of the Resistance Military Forces. Aki now commanded a fleet that included ships from over 40 different species. The challenge was enormous. How do you coordinate a military force made up of beings with completely different ways of thinking and fighting? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Han Minseog had been working on a new project, a neural interface that allowed different species to share tactical information instantly. The first tests were performed with volunteer pilots from 6 different species. "The results are amazing," Dr. Han reported to General Sunwoo. "When they're connected through the interface, they fight as one mind, but with the combined abilities of all 6 species. They're unstoppable." The technology was quickly adapted for use by entire fleets. Soon, resistance forces were coordinating attacks with a precision that the Concordance couldn't match. Human creativity, Kalhari strength, Nexari intelligence, and Lumina energy manipulation were combined into a single, devastating force. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted. The Concordance was no longer the unstoppable empire it had been for 1,000 years. For the first time in galactic history, they were losing. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species from the tiny blue planet that the Concordance had dismissed as primitive. They had become the heart of the largest rebellion in galactic history. And they were winning. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and it was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. The age of the Concordance was ending, and a new age of freedom was beginning. Fleet Admiral Beak Ji-hoon stood before the largest gathering of military leaders in galactic history. Representatives from over 60 species filled the command hall of the massive space station they called Freedom Base. 6 years had passed since the rebellion began, and the war had changed everything. The resistance now controlled half the galaxy, and Ji-hoon had become the most feared military commander the Concordance had ever faced. "Friends and allies," Ji-hoon began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices worn by every species. "Today we have received intelligence about the location of the Eternal Throne." A murmur of excitement ran through the assembled leaders. The Eternal Throne was the Concordance's greatest secret, a massive artificial world hidden in the core of the galaxy. It was where the Hegemon Council ruled from, and where all Concordance military forces received their orders. "Our spies have confirmed that the throne is defended by over 10,000 ships," Ji-hoon continued. "It is the most heavily protected location in the galaxy, but it is also their greatest weakness. If we can destroy it, the entire Concordance military will be paralyzed." Commander Velik of the Kalhari stood up. "Admiral Ji-hoon, my warriors are ready to die for this cause. But how do we get past 10,000 ships? Dr. Shin Eri stepped forward. She had become famous throughout the galaxy for her revolutionary inventions. We have developed something new, she said. Consciousness transfer system that allows perfect coordination between all our forces. She activated a holographic display showing the new technology. With this system, our entire fleet can act as one mind while keeping the unique abilities of each species. We can coordinate attacks on a scale never before possible. Captain Ju Hansel, leader of the legendary Titan Corps, smiled grimly. Soldiers have tested the new armor systems. We can now survive in any environment and fight with the combined strength of all allied species. We are ready for the final battle. Ji-hoon looked around the room at the faces of beings from dozens of worlds. 2 years ago, these species had been enemies or strangers. Now they were united in a way that had never been seen before in galactic history. The attack on the Eternal Throne will be the largest military operation ever attempted, he said. We'll bring 20,000 ships from every corner of the galaxy. This is our chance to end the war and free every enslaved world. Preparations for the final battle took 3 months. Ships from every resistance world gathered at secret bases throughout the galaxy. Human engineers worked with alien scientists to create new weapons and defenses. The neural link technology was installed on every ship, allowing perfect coordination between the massive fleet. The Concordance was not idle during this time. The Hegemon Council had activated ancient weapon systems that had not been used for 1,000 years. They had recalled every ship from across their empire to defend the Eternal Throne. They knew this would be the final battle of the war. The humans have corrupted the natural order, the first Hegemon declared to his council. They have taught the lesser species to resist their batters. This cannot be allowed to continue, okay? The Science Hegemon projected displays showing the approaching resistance fleet. Their ships are inferior in size and firepower, he said. Tia, but their coordination is unlike anything we have ever faced. Dang, they fight as if they share a single mind. Then we will break that mind, the first Hegemon replied. Activate the consciousness disruptor. If they want to link their minds together, we will turn that connection into a weapon against them. When the resistance fleet arrived at the Eternal Throne, they found themselves facing the largest concentration of military power in galactic history. The artificial world was surrounded by massive defense platforms and protected by 10,000 of the Concordance's most advanced warships. All ships, this is Admiral Ji-hoon, came to voice over the neural link. Today, we fight not just for our own freedom, but for the freedom of every being in the galaxy. Remember why we are here. Remember what we are fighting for. The battle began with the largest space engagement in recorded history. 20,000 resistance ships attacked at the Concordance defenses in perfectly coordinated waves. Human fighters darted between massive alien battleships, their tactics unpredictable and devastating. Kalahari assault ships smashed through enemy lines with unstoppable fury. Xari strategists calculated the perfect attack patterns in real time. Lumina energy beings disrupted enemy weapon systems across the entire battlefield. But the Concordance had one final surprise. As the resistance fleet pressed their attack, the ancient consciousness disruptor was activated. The weapons sent waves of mental interference through the neural links, trying to drive the Allied forces insane. For a moment, the perfectly coordinated resistance fleet began to fall apart. Ships collided with each other as their crews lost control. The neural link that had been their greatest strength was being turned against them. Dr. Shin Eri worked frantically aboard the command ship to counter the weapon. I need 10 minutes to recalibrate the neural links, she shouted over the noise of battle. You have it, Ji-hoon replied. Key switched to emergency communications to address the entire fleet. All ships disconnect from the neural link. We fight as separate species again until Dr. Shin can fix the problem. What happened next amazed even Ji-hoon. Instead of falling into chaos, the resistance fleet adapted instantly. Each species fell back on their own fighting styles, but they had learned to work together so well that they hardly needed the neural link anymore. Humans coordinated with Kalahari, who fought alongside Nexari, who supported Lumina, all without any artificial connection. The Concordants had expected their enemies to collapse when the neural link was disrupted. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that was even more dangerous because each species could think and act independently, while still working toward the same goal. Impossible, the first hegemon whispered as he watched his defenses crumble. How can they fight so well without coordination? They have learned to trust each other, the military hegemon replied, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. They do not need artificial links because they have formed real bonds. Captain Ju Hansel led the Titan Corps in the final assault on the Eternal Throne itself. Soldiers, wearing armor that combined the best technology from 30 different species, fought their way through the ancient fortress that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. The battle for the throne room was brief but fierce. The Hegemon Council fought with weapons of incredible power, but they had not faced real combat in centuries. The Titan Corps, battle-hardened from years of war, overwhelmed the ancient rulers in minutes. When the first Hegemon fell, something extraordinary happened. Across the galaxy, every concordant ship suddenly stopped fighting. The neural control system that had enslaved their crews for generations was broken. For the first time in 1,000 years, the soldiers of the Concordants could think for themselves. Many immediately surrendered. Others joined the resistance on the spot. Some simply flew away to find their own paths in the galaxy. Admiral Ji-hoon stood in the ruins of the Eternal Throne, surrounded by the liberated peoples of the galaxy. The war was over. The Concordants had fallen. But as he looked around at the representatives of over 100 species, he realized that the real work was just beginning. "We have won our freedom," he announced to the galaxy. "Now we must prove worthy of it. We must build something better than what came before." The age of the Concordants was over. The age of the Galactic Republic was about to begin, and at its heart would be the humans, the species from the tiny blue planet who had taught the galaxy that even the smallest voice could change everything. President Park Sung-yin stood at the window of the new Galactic Senate building, looking out at the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. Ships from over 200 different species were docked at the massive space station that orbited the former Concordance capital world. 6 years had passed since the fall of the Eternal Throne, and the galaxy was finally at peace. "Mr. President," said his aide, a young Kalahari named Torok, "the morning session is about to begin. Today, we vote on the proposal for the New Worlds Protection Act." Park smiled and straightened his formal robes. As the first human to be elected leader of the Galactic Republic, he carried the hopes of not just Earth, but every free species in the galaxy. It was a responsibility he had never imagined when he was just a young diplomat working with Ambassador Choi Minji decades ago. The Senate chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from every member species. The seats were arranged in a great circle, with no species given a position of greater importance than any other. At the center sat elder statesman Li Wujin, now in his 70s, but still sharp as ever. He had been the chief architect of the Galactic Constitution, a document that guaranteed the rights of all sentient beings. "The Senate will come to order," Li Wujin announced, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "Today, we considered the proposal to extend Republic protection to newly discovered species." The debate that followed showed how much the galaxy had changed. Representatives from species that had once been enemies now worked together to solve problems. The Nexari used their calculating abilities to project the costs of the program. Kahari spoke passionately about the honor of protecting the weak. The Lumina provided insights into the spiritual needs of developing civilizations. I believe this proposal represents everything our republic stands for, said Councillor Brydon of the Lumina. We were all once small and vulnerable. Now it is our duty to ensure that no species suffers what we suffered under the Concordance. Commander Velik, now retired from military service and serving as the Kalahari representative, stood to speak. The humans taught us that strength is not about conquering others. True strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The vote was unanimous. The New World's Protection Act passed with support from every species in the Republic. It was a law that would have been impossible under Concordance rule, a commitment by the strong to defend the weak rather than exploit them. After the session, Park met with Admiral Yu Haijin in her office at Republic Defense Command. The former captain had been promoted to lead the Galactic Peace Corps, a multi-species force dedicated to protecting emerging civilizations and preventing future tyrannies. How many new species have we discovered this year? Park asked Rasputin. Admiral, Yu replied, reviewing her reports. All of them are now under Republic protection. We've stationed Peace Corps fleets in their systems to ensure they can develop without interference. Any sign of new threats? Nothing major, she said. A few pirate groups trying to raid the outer systems, but the local defense forces can handle them. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it has been in over 1,000 years. Park nodded with satisfaction. The Peace Corps was one of humanity's greatest contributions to the new galactic order. Unlike the old Concordance military that existed to conquer and control, the Peace Corps was designed to protect and serve. Ships from dozens of species worked together to keep the peace and help developing worlds. There is one thing you should know, Admiral, you continued. Our long-range scouts have detected something interesting in the Andromeda Galaxy. This might be another galactic civilization, friendly or hostile. Park asked. Unknown. But if they're hostile, we'll be ready for it. Then the Republic is strong, and we've learned a lot about working together. Later that day, Park visited the Memorial of the Fallen, a beautiful monument built to honor all those who had died fighting for galactic freedom. The names of billions of beings were inscribed on crystal walls that stretched 4 kilometers. Humans, Kalahari, Nixari, Lumina, and hundreds of other species were remembered together. He stopped at a special section dedicated to the original heroes of the human resistance. Captain Li Wu, who had discovered the first alien ship, Dr. Park Hanna, who had decoded the Concordance database, Admiral Kang Do-yan, who had built humanity's first starfleet. All of them had died in the war, but their sacrifice had made the current peace possible. They will be proud of what we've built, said a familiar voice behind him. Park turned to see Dr. Lim Juan, the head of the Republic Science Council. At 90 years old, she was one of the last surviving members of humanity's first generation of galactic explorers. Do you think we've lived up to their hopes? Park asked. Beyond their wildest dreams, she replied. When we first learned about the Concordance, we just hoped humanity would survive. We never imagined we would end up leading a free galaxy. They walked together through the memorial gardens. Past statues represented the unity of all galactic species. Children from dozens of different worlds played together in the gardens, their laughter echoing off the memorial walls. It was a sound that would have been impossible under Concordance rule. Dr. Lam, Park said, what do you think made the difference? Why were humans able to unite the galaxy when so many other species failed? She thought for a long moment before answering. I think it was because we were small, she said finally. When you're weak, you learn to work with others. When you're strong, you think you can do everything alone. The Concordance was so powerful, they forgot how to cooperate. It was so weak, we had to learn. That evening, Park received a report that would have been routine news in the new galaxy. but would have been impossible under the old order. A Peace Corps fleet had made contact with a primitive species in the Outer Rim. Instead of preparing for conquest or integration, the fleet had simply introduced themselves and offered friendship and protection. The species, called the Zephyrians, were at roughly the same technological level that humans had been when Captain Li Wu first discovered the alien ship. They were frightened and confused by the contact with advanced galactic civilization. The Peace Corps commander, a human officer named Captain Jin Sora, Ked, sent a simple message to the Zephyrian leaders. "We come not as conquerors, but as friends. Your freedom is sacred, your culture is precious, and your voice matters in the grand symphony of the galaxy. We are here to protect you, not to change you." Park smiled as he read the report, and those words had become the standard greeting for all new species discovered by the Republic. There were words that would have been meaningless to the Concordants, but they represented everything the new galaxy stood for. He walked out onto his balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were making their first tentative steps into galactic civilization, just as humans had done 40 years ago. But unlike humanity, they wouldn't have to face that journey alone. They would have friends and protectors. Every step of the way, the transformation was complete. Humanity had gone from a tiny, primitive species on an insignificant blue planet to the leaders of the largest peaceful civilization in galactic history. They had learned that true strength came not from conquering others, but from helping them become strong themselves. The Concordants had ruled through fear and oppression, creating a galaxy of slaves. The Republic ruled through cooperation and mutual respect, creating a galaxy of friends. This was a lesson that would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. As Park looked up at the infinite stars, he knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were always new worlds to discover, new species to befriend, and new challenges to face. But whatever came next, they would face it together. The incredible journey of humans from a tiny blue planet to galactic legends was complete. The story of the Galactic Republic was just beginning.